Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Baseball report today, Emerson Phillips with Gamecock legend Kip Bouknight. Kip, it's been a tough year for Gamecock baseball. We're going to talk about some of the problems that the Gamecocks have had this season. But right now, there is no getting around the fact that the Gamecocks have lost 5 straight conference series for the first time in the history of the program. And a lot of folks are not happy about that.
No, it's been a tough year. But, on the flip side of that, Emerson, I think it was 2000, maybe 4, when I think we ended up getting to the conference or the World Series, and either the final game or the semifinal game, I can't remember. But it was one of those years. I think the Gamecocks were 9-9 in the SEC, going into the last several weekends of the year. And as bad as it's been, if they can somehow go 6-3, 7-2 the last 9 games, and play well in the SEC tournament, which, as we know, has certainly not been the history that South Carolina has in the SEC tournament, this team could still get hot. And wake up. Next thing you know, they're playing their best baseball of the year, and they get to Omaha. I mean, I can remember fans calling for Coach Tanner's head during some of those years where they were struggling about this point of the season. So it's all about how you finish, and that's the good news, and that's the positive, and that's what those guys have to hold their heads on, is to be able to go out and keep fighting, and hopefully they are mentally capable of being able to put a lot of disappointments behind them.
Kip, if the Gamecocks were at full strength, they may have an opportunity to go ahead and start playing a little bit better and get heated up, like you said, and play better going into Hoover, play better over these final 3 series of the SEC regular season, and perhaps put themselves in position to make a run in the postseason. But the injury to Clark Schmidt has been devastating. The Gamecocks are scrambling to find a Sunday starter now. John Park started last Sunday in the series against Kentucky. We don't yet know who's going to start this Sunday in the series against LSU. And, very difficult road trip coming up this weekend against an LSU team that's in the top 15 in all 6 major polls. So talk about the injury to Schmidt and how that's affected the team, and where does Carolina go from here, Kip? 5 straight conference series losses, never happened before.
Yeah, that's kind of an amazing stat, really. It's pretty impressive that that's never happened. That means that South Carolina's program's been pretty daggone good for a long, long time. The Southeastern Conference is tough, Emerson. It's a tough league. It'll beat you up, but going to LSU is an extremely tough task, no matter if you're completely healthy or not, no matter if you're having a great year or not. I mean, I can remember going there when we were 50-6 in the regular season, my junior year, and on Friday night and Saturday night, we were winning both games in the 9th inning and ended up losing Friday and Saturday. And thank goodness we ended up coming back and winning on Sunday, having to hold them off in the 9th inning again on Sunday. So very, very tough series coming up. As far as the Clark Schmidt injury for me, the frustrating thing is we were not playing well even when Clark Schmidt was healthy. So I don't really necessarily yes, it's a loss, and yes, it's tough not having him, and absolutely I'd love to have him going on Friday night at LSU in Baton Rouge. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons, I think, that this team just haven't played well enough to win a lot of ball games. The pitching is just, you look at a stat book and the pitching, you can arguably say, oh, God, the pitching staff's doing a great job, but they've given up some really, really bad, some tough, they've had losses in tough parts of the game. They've made bad pitches in certain parts of the game, and I think that things haven't been managed as well as they certainly could have been. And, again, I'm not quite sure. I know I don't have I hope and I pray and I hope and I want my Gamecocks to finish up the year well and be great, but I just don't see it. I think this is unfortunately going to be a really, really bad season for them.
Kip, the Gamecocks beat Wofford on Tuesday night this week, 9-5, and we've seen Chad Holbrook, try to tweak the lineup a little bit in recent weeks here to try to get this offense jump started. The Gamecocks have struggled at times offensively this year. Ross Grosner hit a home run in 2 consecutive games this week. We've seen Riley Hogan play well in the last month or so. And before we started the podcast today, we talked about John Jones, who you mentioned was one of the hottest hitters in the country the first couple of months of the season last year. but he's barely played this year, and he's actually gotten into the lineup a little bit more here of late. Had a home run and had 2 runs knocked in against Wofford Wednesday night. So, if you're Chad Holbrook, what do you do to try to shake things up and try to get this team moving in the right direction? We got 3 SEC series left.
Yeah, I certainly don't blame Coach Holbrook for trying to change it up a little bit and get those guys in there. I mean, I said this earlier in the season, Emerson, if I'm facing that lineup, and this was pre, the lefty, the really good, our best hitter right now, in my opinion.
Cortez.
I can't think of it. Yeah, thank you, Carlos Cortez. I mean, before he was in the lineup, there wasn't anybody that I would be considered. I would be afraid to pitch to. And I mean, I'm not saying that in a conceited or cocky way. I'm thinking if I'm still in college, if I know the lineup that I'm facing in South Carolina, I would not be concerned at anybody I'm facing. But now you got Carlos Cortez swinging a hot bat. You got a guy like John Jones. You got Grosser in there. Destino back in there swinging well. Then you got 4 or 5 guys, and you go, wow, now that's a lineup that actually I can get hurt. Before, I mean, it's a bunch of guys just hitting singles or doubles, and there's no threat for the long ball. So I'm ecstatic that Coach Holbrook changed things up a little bit. And sometimes as an everyday starter, sometimes you need a little bit of time to get in the cage and work on some things and take a mental break. And hopefully Destino, that break he's had on the pine a little bit, hopefully that'll make him come back and have a renewed start and be ready to hopefully help the Gamecocks get hot and make a postseason run.
Gamecock Central Radio, Emerson Phillips with Gamecock great Kip Bouknight. We invite you to download the Gamecock Central Radio app on the App Store and on Google Play. You can subscribe to our podcast, search for Gamecock Central Radio on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other popular services, or just visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. The app is free. Our podcasts are free. Download the app today. A 9-5 win for South Carolina over Wofford on Tuesday night at Founders Park. The Gamecocks are 26-17 overall, 10-11 in the SEC, and we're getting ready for LSU coming up this weekend. Let me give you some of the numbers from the Wofford win Tuesday night. Colby Lee was the winning pitcher in relief. He's now 2-0 on the year. He worked 2 2/3, gave up 2 runs, 2 hits, walked 2, and struck out 3. And it was freshman right-hander Cody Morris tying a career high with 8 strikeouts and 4 innings of work as the starter. 2 runs allowed, 1 hit, 3 walks. Gamecocks scored 4 runs in the bottom of the first and got 3 home runs in the ball game. Ross Grosner homered for the second straight game. Alex Destino homered, and Riley Hogan hit a home run as well. So, Kip, Destino's batting average has plummeted in the last month or more, and good to see him swing the bat a little bit better Tuesday night against Wofford. The Gamecocks are going to need him to produce. He was incredible last year, Kip, but he struggled at times this year.
He has. I mean, he's definitely got some holes in his swing. It's really long, and that's there's a good news and the bad news. The good news for college baseball is the amount of exposure it has and all the TV games. The bad news on that is pretty easy to, I mean, gosh, you can sit in your bed at home or in a dorm room and you're about to face South Carolina and you can sit there and watch some film and you can see some things. I mean, it's amazing the coverage that it gets now. So, they've just been exploiting his weaknesses and, he's just got to make adjustments, and that comes from getting with the hitting coach and finding out how pitchers are attacking you, and being able to fix that. And unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do that yet. So hopefully, this bomb against Wofford will help him get his mental part of it right, and be confident and ready to go for the rest of the season.
Gamecocks at Baton Rouge starting tonight, 8:00 on the SEC Network Plus. Saturday night, 8 o'clock first pitch on the SEC Network, and then Sunday at 3 on ESPN. Kip, LSU's always good. I mean, perennially, this is one of the top programs in college baseball. I think they won 5 titles in the 1990s, if memory serves. They're 30-15. They're 13-8 overall. So LSU always a very tough place to go play. And, let's face it, Kip, LSU's in the top 15 in all 6 of the major polls. If they can close out strong with 3 SEC series left, they could still get a top 8 national seed, and that's got to be their goal at this point.
It is. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like LSU's sitting pretty. You're talking about a difference in 4 or 5 games between the 2 records. It's amazing. I mean, South Carolina doesn't blow 3 or 4 late leads like they have at least. I mean, just imagine if they were 4 games better in the SEC. You know, imagine if they're 13 and what would that be? 13-5 right now instead of 9-9. I mean, it's amazing the difference in you know, everybody's thoughts and processes going into this last, you know, part of the season. But always a tough place to play. South Carolina's going to have to they're going to have to bang it. They're going to have to hit the ball really, really well. That's a very, very tough place to play. There's no better home field advantage in America. I'm sad to admit, I know Gamecock fans think that it's great at Founders Park, and it can be. Don't get me wrong. There's times it can be, but it's not even close. LSU is definitely the top of the list.
All right, so the Gamecocks have played the second most difficult schedule in the country. The NCAA ranks difficulty of schedule. The Gamecocks are number 2 in that department right now, and but it's that way every year, Kip. The Gamecocks always have one of the toughest schedules in the country because they play in the SEC. They have an annual 3-game series with Clemson, and you know they typically play North Carolina in a couple of midweek games. At least that's been the case the last couple of years. So difficult schedule is nothing new for Gamecock baseball. Kip, you said earlier that you're not optimistic that the Gamecocks are going to turn the season around at this point, and I think a lot of folks agree with you. I think a lot of people, particularly in the fan base, feel that way right now. So let's look ahead just a little bit, and let's speculate for a moment. If the Gamecocks do not get this season turned around, if they do not make a run in postseason play, and it ends up being a disappointing year when it's all said and done, do you think South Carolina makes a change at any of the coaching positions during the offseason?
You know, that's a tough one for me to talk about. You know, obviously Coach Tanner's like a dad to me. I played for him. He's certainly someone I'm very close to. Coach Holbrook's a guy that recruited me. I love him to death. He's like a brother. I do, however, think that something has to change if they don't finish like, obviously, Coach Holbrook, Coach Tanner would like them to finish and get to the postseason and make a little bit of a run. I think there has to be a change. You know, for Holbrook's sake, hopefully maybe he's allowed to choose his own staff. You know, that's one thing that a lot of folks don't talk about. And, you know, certainly you can argue and say, well, you know, Coach Myers has been there. He's been a part of World Series championships and Esposito as well. So, but anytime a head coach comes in, normally they get to kind of choose their staff. You know, maybe they're not clicking there. Maybe feels like he needs to make a change. Those are things that I'm sure him and Coach Tanner will discuss and talk about. You know, so it remains to be seen. I wish nothing but the best for all those guys, especially Coach Holbrook, and I certainly hope that, you know, they can get hot, and I hope he's here for the next 10 years. But the way it's going now, I just don't see it. There's just a lot of things, especially on the pitching side, that I just think that we need to be pitching a little bit differently and using guys in a little bit different roles. And you know, I see guys that have the arms that they have and facing the bats they have, and I'm just I'm amazed sometimes at how we just are afraid to pitch to contact and just not attacking the hitters. I mean, looking back at John Park's last start on Sunday, he was out there just letting it eat and just dominating the first couple innings, and he was no care in the world, just letting it go and trusting his fastball, and then he gave up one hit, and then we went straight to the off speed and change-ups and sliders, and he was scared to pitch to contact. Next thing you know, he's out of the game. So you got to learn how to pitch with a lead, and you got to learn how to. I think the biggest thing is just trusting their stuff. They just seem to be, you know, they pitch backwards a lot and just scared to pitch to contact. But you know, that's my opinion, and you know, a lot of folks can say, well, you know, I mean, this staff and a lot of staffs over the last, you know, many years at South Carolina have done the same things, and they've had a lot of success. So, you know, again, that's just my opinion.
All right, the Gamecocks are at LSU this weekend, starting tonight at 8 o'clock. Carolina plays at Missouri next weekend, which has had a surprisingly good year. And then South Carolina closes out the regular season with a 3-game homestand against the Georgia Bulldogs. Then we'll go to Hoover for the conference tournament, and then postseason play will begin. Kip, we appreciate your perspective, and I'm looking forward to talking more about this Gamecock baseball team with you as the season goes on. Everybody's hoping the Gamecocks get it going in the right direction. Not a lot of folks optimistic, at least outside of the locker room right now, that that's going to happen. So very curious to see how things are going to play out. Thanks for your time today, Kip.
Yep, thank you. Go Gamecocks.
All right, that's Kip Bouknight, Gamecock Great, and I'm Emerson Phillips. This is Gamecock Central Radio. We'll be back to talk more Gamecock baseball here on GCR. Thanks for being with us.